I just lost my sister, now I just lost my wife, and now she's trying to take away my children.
Yo, what crime have I committed? Why are they bringing weapons? Why are they bringing weapons? Why are they bringing shields?
Japan is known worldwide as a popular destination with amazing culture, some of the nicest people you'll ever meet, and great hospitality. But living in Japan and visiting Japan can be a completely different reality, a reality of unfairness and discrimination. This is the story of Kevin, a little glimpse into the dark side of Japan.
My name is Kevin, originally from California, Los Angeles. I've been living in Japan for approximately about 8 years.
Beside your current issue, how was it until that point?
I've always had a great experience in Japan, never really had any issues here, just until recently. That's when it kind of just saw a different side of Japan that I only heard stories about.
Before you're gonna tell your story, did you see videos about those like weird sides of Japan?
Yeah, I've seen like a lot of Vice documentaries. I've heard from other friends just weird stuff that happens, but I personally never experienced any of that stuff. I was one of those people that was like, oh, that's never gonna happen to me, and here I am. And probably my story is even crazier than most of the ones I've heard, so.
Let's dive deep into that. You are married to a Japanese woman.
Yes, this is my second marriage. I have 3 kids total. My oldest child is from my first marriage. We ended that marriage pretty decent. We were on good terms. With my current wife, I have 2 children, which is the main topic. A son that's about to turn 4 next month, and a daughter that's 2.5.
So your wife took the kids without you doing anything wrong and kind of disappeared, or?
So it goes back into July of last year. I had a couple businesses that I was starting that were more of like in the Inaka part of Japan. My wife was working in Sapporo, so we had a little bit of an issue about relocation. She really wanted to keep her job, but she was a little bit too comfortable with her boss, and they had some inappropriate conversations after work hours, which I voiced my opinion. I told her that I wanted to do like a family business with her, so I was really trying to get her to quit her job and maybe possibly start the business with me.
When you said inappropriate conversations, what do you mean by that?
Like, I mean, like anything after, let's say working hours 7 o'clock would be inappropriate for me. So like 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, still chatting with the boss is a little inappropriate for me. Plus she would tell like personal stuff about my personal life, and just a little bit too close relationship with her boss. It wasn't very professional. She tried to make it more of like a friendship. So kind of concerning, I guess.
You were suspecting something, or?
Yeah, I was suspecting stuff because I have caught her cheating in the past before. I was very skeptical of any relationships she had or anybody that she was texting, after really late working hours, especially when she was not currently working and she was on the childcare leave. So I thought that was very unusual to be chatting with the boss about work.
I see. You started to open up your own business, that's what you're saying, and you wanted to do that with your wife.
Yeah, I wanted like a little mom and pop family business, in the countryside, like selling some ice cream, some hamburgers to some tourists in the local area. It was definitely a dream that I wanted, but I guess it wasn't something that she wanted, so we had a little bit of issues about that topic. We discussed divorce a little bit if it didn't work out, but in the end, she decided she wanted to quit her job. On the day she went to go quit her job, that's when everything changed. Whoever she talked to got into her head, and she did a complete 360.
Who talked to her, and about what? About your potential business life with her?
Yeah, so she went to work to go quit in July, and then I noticed that she didn't call me back. And she was supposed to quit because she said she was on board with this family business idea, and she was kind of excited, and she was kind of nervous, wasn't really what she wanted, but she was like kind of going with it. But when she talked to her boss, he was telling her that if she quit, it would give his company a bad reputation because 2 other people had quit already.
Do you suspect that he said that because he did not want her to be far away from him or something like that?
Yeah, so he was basically trying to keep her from quitting and making her feel guilty, because he did help her with like schools and getting like certifications for childcare and welfare stuff. So she felt really guilty that she owes him, and she kept saying that she owes him another 2 years of working with him.
Sounds quite like how do I say that, the Japanese thing to do, ain't it?
Yeah, I told her that it was power harassment, that he has no right to kind of make her feel bad about the life choices that we're going to do with our family. She got very argumentative and basically was starting to back him up. After that, she hung up on me. The next day, she didn't come home, and she told me that she wanted a divorce and she was taking the children to her parents.
Yeah, that's a crazy thing to hear. So I have to ask you, how was the relationship before that? Were there problems? If you can elaborate on potential problems that you had, because it sounds so sudden for her to say suddenly out of nowhere the day after, boom, I'm going to divorce you.
So we really didn't have too many problems in the relationship besides the time that I caught her cheating on me. That was a big deal for me. I lost a lot of trust in the relationship because my son was only 6 months old at that time. So I was pretty disappointed, pretty sad, and we talked about it, but I still never fully gained trust of her. So I would say, in a way, I would just not have the trust in her that I used to have. So that did cause some problems in the relationship, but we always try to work it out. And then we had our second child, and then it seemed like everything was kind of going good, and life was good, and everything was fine. Then my sister died in April, and that's when things kind of took a turn. Obviously, I was distraught. I was going through my own type of mourning process. I had to go to America for 22 days, and in that time frame, my wife was responsible for taking care of the children for 22 days, and that was her first time doing everything by herself. She called me within the first week. She couldn't handle it. She was crying, saying that the kids are not listening, and she didn't know how to do it. But she ended up figuring it out, and I think she had a lot of help from her family and from her work. So when I got back, it felt like she had a lot of resentment for me for leaving her for that emergency situation, and she kept telling me, I can do everything by myself now. I don't need you no more. And I was like, well, that's great. Like, you should be independent. You should be able to do all these things without me. I'm glad. She's like, I learned how to drive without you. And I was like, yeah, that's awesome. And then when she went to go quit her job, that all kind of played a part in it. She wants that independence.
First of all, and again, I will say that I'm so sorry to hear about your sister. Secondly, in between, or before you went back to America, was she a homestay mom?
So we were both on childcare leave for our children. And so we were both at home taking care of the children. Besides a couple of side business projects I was working on, I was home majority of the time. I was doing just as much childcare as she was.
I see.
She does suffer from a condition called PCOS, is polycystic ovarian syndrome, which means the woman has an abnormal level of testosterone. So they're also more prone to postpartum depression after they give birth to the child, which my wife did go through. She takes her anger out on the children, just stuff like that. I didn't really judge her too much. I just told her that she needed to get some doctor help, which she said she did. She felt really guilty about the stuff that she did to the children when she was mad. But I knew that she had hormonal imbalance, so I wasn't really trying to, make her feel too bad. But I would just let her know, like, certain things bothered me. The way she handled discipline with the children. Sometimes she was too lazy to clean or do dishes, and she wanted me to do, like, everything.
So you mentioned her kind of like mistreatment of the children. Was there anything else?
When it came to discipline, she would get upset and frustrated, even when at such a young age, when the children were breastfeeding. At 9 months old, she would smack them in the face if they cried too much, just out of frustration, which that was a big red flag for me. I warned her about it. There was a couple of arguments we had over it. Sometimes
Well,
Oh, go ahead.
that sounds like abuse. No.
Yeah, it is.
Were you there?
Yeah,
or...
it is abuse. I've witnessed it a few times, and then from my neighbor, I recently found out that she's was more abusive when I wasn't home. So there's a lot of things that I didn't realize about my wife that had a lot of red flags that was going on. So discipline, that was a disagreement. Religion was one of them. She's part of a religious group called Sokogakai.
What is this Sokogakai, if you can elaborate a little bit?
Even I'm still not fully aware. I just know it is a sect, New Age sect of Buddhism. When I tell people that my wife is Sokogakai, I get a lot of Oh, daijoubu? And usually Japanese people don't give too many reactions when you talk to them, so that was always kind of alarming. I just know they have a bad reputation. They're kind of considered a cult in Japan, according to some of my regular Buddhist people and Shinto friends.
Anything else when it came to this sect that affected your marriage?
I would say now her religion's probably playing a big part in what's been going on, just with like her lawyers and stuff. She's got really high paid lawyers, so I can only imagine it's either recommended by her religion or it's through a connection of her boss and the MPO that they have. And after she went to go quit, that's when she did a 360. The boss got into her head, made her feel bad, and then she kind of just went against me, saying that she wanted the divorce, that she wanted the children to live with her and her parents, and that she took the children. So for about 4 days, she was not contact with me with the children. She wouldn't allow any contact, and she kept making these words like domestic. You threatened to kill me, like just started all kinds of crazy nonsense.
Where were you physically?
I was with my friend coming back from a fishing trip, supposedly going to meet my wife for a business meeting that we were supposed to have in Otaru.
Did you come back home? There was no one after that? Or?
I came back home and it looked like someone literally robbed and ransacked my house. All the kids' toys were still there, but a lot of their clothes were missing, but some of them were still there. It was like someone just ran through it and grabbed as much stuff as they could in a very short amount of time and then left.
Wow. Okay.
It was very weird.
That sounds quite extreme.
Yeah, I called their parents, and me and the dad had like a decent relationship, and he said, "Oh, she's scared of you," and I'm like, I don't understand. I've done nothing. And she made like this persona that like she's now abused and scared, but I have like doorbell pictures of her leaving my house with a smile, and we're together with smiles, so it just didn't make sense at all. So during that time period for those 3 days, I was like crying. I was breaking down in tears, and I called some mutual friends of me and my wife's, and one of them called her to try to calm her down, and then we eventually end up meeting.
When you guys actually met, did you ask her what happened?
When I met her, that's when it was even more bizarre, because she was just totally not in her right mind. It seemed like she was definitely like hallucinating or something. So I would just honestly it was mind-boggling. Like, is this really happening? And so we sat there. We had an agreement. Then we finally agreed that I'll have the kids back. And before we discussed any divorce or further, we would both go see a psychologist and then eventually get counseling together. And then that's when things started taking even a worse turn. I went to the psychologist and got evaluated and did my thing. And she ended up never going. And then after that, she stopped communication, verbal communication, and was only repeating her words over and over, like, bring me the children, bring me the children, bring me the children. And I told her, well, please send me your doctor's receipt. The agreement was that if I was to bring her back the children, she has to do the doctor visitation with a receipt.
When you had your evaluation, was everything fine?
So like so everything was for me fine. I was mourning the death of my sister, so that was most of my conversation. And other than that, just some personal stuff that I had and that me and the doctor talked about, but nothing that would make anything for my wife to have to worry about or for the safety of my children. So everything was fine in that regard.
Do you have the papers to prove that you are fine?
Yeah, I released it to my wife.
When you had the meeting with your wife and the friends, your mutual friends can vouch for her strange behavior?
Oh yes, she has vouched for my wife's strange behavior and has even been my key witness to all of this. And now my wife hates her and refuses to talk to her because she told the truth about all this strange behavior and the agreement that we originally had. Because my wife is trying to say that we never had that agreement and that I was just supposed to bring back the children.
Did you by any chance had a recording of all of that meeting, or, because it's just a person, that friend of yours?
Yeah, so originally we were going to record the meeting, but my wife told us not to. So I just asked her the questions and wrote them down in my phone, and my friend was there as a witness, or our mutual friend was there as a witness, and so she attested to everything that was said.
That friend is a mutual friend, it's not just your...
Yeah, it's a mutual friend. She was my friend first, but she became a mutual friend of both me and my wife's after we actually even before we got married. She's just a very good family friend, I would say.
From the side, I'm thinking to myself, maybe it's a shame that you still did not record, because, you know, because you were friends before.
Yeah, well. In Japan, you can't record without a person's permission. So that's why I specifically asked my wife. But having a witness is a different story. So that's why my witness should be valuable. And I have pictures and evidence of their friendship. It's not like we are always together. There's times where my wife and her went to lunch together, or they all had a girls' day. There's proof there, and they've been friends for over 5 years, even with before my wife even had any kids, and I was just with my oldest daughter. And that was the person that my wife chose, that she was comfortable to meet me with, because she didn't want to meet me by myself, that she was only comfortable to meet me with a mutual friend. So that's why she agreed on that person. I just kept telling her, like, show me the doctor's note, I'll bring him over. Answer your phone, I'll bring him over. We'll work something out. Like, you can see them. I never once stopped my wife or stopped any block for contact of the children. I was always trying to initiate contact. And this went on for a couple weeks. And then police show up at my house questioning about domestic report from my wife. So she obviously did that as spite, because she wanted me to bring the children to her, but she wouldn't answer the phone and she didn't go to the doctors. So now she's trying to get the police to intimidate me. And they had a lady in a van, like, ready to, like, take my children, because they said that my children were also in danger. So they were like, where's the children? Where's the children? I'm like, my children are in the house sleeping. Like, can we come in? I'm like, I'm sorry, if you don't have a warrant, it's against the Constitution. And I said, respectfully, I like to keep my rights not violated. They said, okay, you're right, and we don't have a warrant, but we would still like to know how the children are doing. And I said, they're fine, they're sleeping. And then coincidentally, my children woke up, came outside, and ran to me and started hugging me in front of the cops. And then the whole, like, interrogation part of the cops, like, totally, the demeanor changed. They're like smiling now, kind of talking nicely with me. And I'm like, I said, I told you she's lying. The children are perfectly safe. And she's like, well, they also called the child center. So now, like, the child services in Japan is going to come to your house. And I said, well, do they have a warrant to come in? Because I said, I've done nothing wrong, and these are just allegations. They said, yeah, but they gotta investigate. Legally, they can't enter.
Okay.
But when I spoke to the consulate about it, they said it's probably in your best interest to allow them entry, just to take their worries away, especially when it comes to regards of children. They came over a week later, and I did ask them when they first came to my house, do you guys have warrants? They said no. And I said, well, can we schedule a different time? They're willing to do it, and they seem quite nice. So I said, you know what? Come on in. And I let them in my house. My kids were happened to be playing and eating and watching TV. So we sat down. Again, they questioned me about domestic violence and what happened. And I told them, no, just a little argument. Everything was fine, in my opinion. And now she's totally did a 360 flip, and I believe it has to do with her condition. Told them the children are fine. I had a medical check done, so I showed them that the children were healthy. They had a full medical check. I showed them my refrigerator. I showed them me in the kids' room. And when they left, they said, oh, looks like you're doing a good job raising your children. And that was last I've ever heard from the police and the child services from that time.
Sounds like the case should have been basically closed right there, no?
So for the police and the child services, that was pretty much done. The domestic reports is over, but my wife is still trying to forcefully take the children from me without having to see me anymore now. So now she started a family court lawsuit against me for the child's custodial parent and for temporary handover of the children before court procedures are finalized.
Okay.
And she wanted a restraining order, which I have no idea why, because I've never done anything. I never stalked her, never threatened her, never even bothered her. So I had to go to court, and that was the first court. It was family court. And usually in family court, you start off with mediation. But in this situation, there was no mediation. It was almost basically straight to a trial regarding the children. Once the court proceedings started, it just started getting a lot more stressful, a lot more pressure. And I asked them if I can get a lawyer. I needed some time. They wouldn't give me extensions. And because my wife made false claims about the children's welfare, everything is like expedited and rushed. Even though I proved it with doctors' checks and certifications and stuff, they still didn't care.
They wouldn't give you time.
They wouldn't give me time. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a lawyer, and I had to represent myself.
You were in court and things moved fast. How fast and what happened after?
Yeah, they moved extremely fast. So we would have the procedure where they would get my side of the story, her side of the story, and then they would do an investigation. And because I didn't speak Japanese, even the procedure was done quite differently. But it seemed no matter how much evidence I submitted to prove the claims that she made against me were false, they totally changed the topic from the initial domestic claims to the welfare of the children. Now it was like, okay, well, the children are no problem in your care, but this is now determining who is the main caregiver for the children. And then this is where the gender harassment and the racism played in, because they said there's no problem of how I take care of the children, but because my wife is Japanese, raising Japanese children in Japan, therefore it's better for a Japanese mother to raise Japanese children in Japan. So that's quite common. Gender harassment is quite common amongst even couples that are both Japanese. But in my situation where one parent is Japanese and the other one is not, then the Japanese parent is going to win in that case.
So you're saying that even two Japanese people, they would all most of the time give the children to the mother, even though the mother could be a little bit not right in the head, as far as you know.
I would say 90% of 90% of the time it would be given to the mother. But in cases where there was, like in my situation, there was claims of abuse, proof of abuse, witnesses that the mother did it, then most of that time it would go to the Japanese father.
Ah, okay, I see.
In that situation. But because I'm a foreigner, even though I have Japanese ancestry, they don't use that in consideration at all. I'm just a foreigner. So my dad is half Japanese, and I'm a quarter Japanese.
Did they literally in court tell you because she's Japanese, it would be better for her to be raised by a Japanese mother, like straight up, like?
Yeah, they wrote it in the investigation paperwork straight out. There was no hiding it. It's actually one of the reasons why I'm appealing it to the Supreme Court.
Where is that, Tokyo or?
Tokyo. So the Supreme Court is the highest level of the court procedures. So they have the final say in all cases.
So they took your children just recently?
Yeah, so the family court, I had at that time I had my children. Then I appealed it to the high court. I still had my children, and my wife refused to have contact for us for about 4 months at that time. And then since I was financially taking care of myself and the children at that time without any help from my wife, I have a tree business, and in Hokkaido, I had to move because Hokkaido, there's no work during winter. So I moved to Kagoshima to try to expand my tree business and grow my clientele for wintertime. So when I made the move with the children, and I tried to contact my wife, but there was no contact. And we did everything through paperwork properly, through like the city hall. We notified them of the move out. The new city hall, we notified of the new move in. So everything was done on paper. But according to my wife and her lawyers, that was for me to flee.
So like you kidnapped the children?
They tried to say I kidnapped the children, but I told them, after there was another time a police contacted me saying, "Did you kidnap your children?" I said, "Absolutely not. They've always been in my care. My wife refuses to answer the phone calls or messages, so I'm not sure why she would even say that when she's had every opportunity to contact the children." And I think a person that would kidnap children wouldn't want to contact the person they kidnapped the children from, right? So just nothing made sense, and that's why still now I was never actually charged with any crime.
At this point, you're just beyond confused, it sounds like it.
Exactly, and I got to remember, I just lost my sister, now I just lost my wife, and now she's trying to take away my children. I can't change that my sister died. I can't change that my wife doesn't want to be with me anymore, but at least I can try to keep my children in my care.
What happened recently? The latest news?
And out of nowhere, I get another court paper, and I'm thinking it's from either the Supreme Court or something. Well, it turns out it's from the court in my new area now.
Oh.
And it's called, and the court order is for a habeas corpus.
What does it mean?
Which basically means it's usually used for people that are like imprisoned illegally, like during war and stuff like that. But they've tailored it now where it can be used for custody battles. And because my wife believes she still has the parental authority because it was given to her from the family court, even though it's appealed, she believes she still has that right. She said that I was illegally keeping my children as prisoners and that she wanted for me to release them to her care.
Oh, wow.
She also said the children were in danger in my care, that we moved to a new area, that it was psychologically traumatizing, that I didn't have any money to feed them, just all kinds of sorts of nonsense, that I've concealed their location. Everything that she said was an absolute lie. So I proved it in court. Again, I got my children checked by the doctor. I showed the document showing that the children were in the nursery school. I told them that I feed the children all the time. I have, receipts if they want to see it. I have tons of grocery receipts. So I said, and if I didn't have any money, how did I just buy another house and move from Hokkaido to this area? All this takes money.
Yeah.
I just said, this is just all lies. Well, it really just came down to it that she had a compulsory execution order that I wasn't even aware of, that she had enacted while I was on vacation with the children, and I wasn't even at any of those court appearances to even present my argument. And that compulsory execution is basically means she can have the children handed over to her now before the court orders go through. I talked to some lawyers. They said if I don't abide by that, it's actually not a crime. But since I moved, she tried to use as an excuse that I was trying to evade the order.
Oh, okay.
So that's why she started the habeas corpus against me. But I told the judge not aware of any of those things, and all the stuff that I am aware of has all been appealed to the Supreme Court. So therefore, nothing is final and binding. Still trying to contact my wife. I even asked her if she wanted to do some mediation through her lawyer, since I don't have direct contact. And the lawyer came back saying that my wife's lawyer and her refused to do mediation, and they want to continue with the procedure of habeas corpus. Now, habeas corpus is actually a quite traumatizing experience for children, as they'll be handed over to court staff until the judge decides which parent has the authority. I took my children to a psychologist just because of the trauma of the mom not being in their life for 7 months and some of the physical abuse they had. And they were diagnosed with signs of post-traumatic stress syndrome because of the mother. I had those documents as well, and it even said from the psychiatrist that it's recommended for the children to not take part in any of the disputes amongst the parents. So I submitted that to the court, and for my second court date, I had also let them know that I'm also experiencing some psychological stuff, severe stress because of all this stuff going on with my wife, and all the false accusations have put me in a severe stress state, and just having to worry about taking care of the children, it would just become very overwhelming. So I needed medical intervention, which I got, and it helped me keep myself stable. I let the court know that me going to court without a lawyer and having to bring my children there would just basically put me in a not healthy situation. So I kindly request for an extension to get the lawyer and for my children not to be there. So that morning, the day of the court, I dropped my kids off for the second court date. I dropped my kids off at school. Everything was fine, but I did notice there is an unmarked vehicle in front of my house with people that look like undercover cops.
Why would they be there?
I have no idea. I just know my court date was that day. So I drove my kids to school, dropped them off, and then I faxed the court telling them that I would like more time, if possible. And then as I'm returning home, that same car is still parked in front of my neighbor's house. And so I pulled up next to them, and I look at the guy, and I'm like, roll down your window. And he's just like ignoring me. And I said, kind of like, sumimasen, like, roll down your window. And he looks at me, and then the guy in his passenger side pops out with another guy, and then they start talking to me, and then this little old lady pops out, and then next thing you know, I got cars from every direction on the road stop me.
Oh, shit.
And just tons of people come out, and next thing you know, it went from like two or three people to now there's about almost 20 people surrounding my car in the middle of the street in front of my house.
Sounds like you had a machine gun or something.
Yeah, they were treating me like if I just like killed or murdered someone, and now they're just trying to come swat me.
There's 20 people here to tell me that I have to go to court. They are forcing me to go to court while I'm sick. I have not complied to fail to the court order, and here they are at my house forcing me, surrounding me, and watching me.
Do you feel like they would behave in the same way if it was a Japanese person?
Oh, no, absolutely not. From what I heard, if a Japanese guy or a Japanese woman did exactly what I did, they would not be treated like that. This was specifically because I'm a foreigner. I'm Gaijin with tattoos. I look kind of scary. I don't have like the friendliest looking face. So they said they had to take extra precautions for me.
Wow.
Because they don't know who I am.
Oh, okay.
So there's about 20 people there. It was quite a crazy situation. And then there was one small older lady, like a grandmother's age, and she was my translator.
Was she a good translator?
I would say she was not a good translator whatsoever. She was nice, but even in court, she was my translator as well in court, and she didn't understand a lot of the stuff I was saying. So I believe a lot of stuff did not even get translated properly.
Yeah, but look at how many people. Look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 people. 15. 私は一つの人. Why are they bringing weapons? Why are they bringing weapons? Why are they bringing shields? Why are they bringing gloves? Go. What crime have I committed?
一体何の犯罪を犯
Because they never stated the crime. You have to state the crime. It is Nihon no Kempo rule.
裁判所に行ってお話を
お話を
したらいいです。
したらいいですよ。これ、うちは
So if it's not criminal, why is there 20 officers with weapons? So that is also illegal in Japan. That is called coercion, which is forcing someone to do something against their will with threats.
They were ready for a fight, and they weren't going to leave until they had me. And I told them I'm not fighting. I just want to know what's going on, and I want you guys to respect the Japanese Constitution. That if you are going to arrest me, you have to tell me the crime I committed or what the warrant is for. And it's usually ask me for a criminal warrant. And then in that altercation, since I'm in the street, the one officer took my car key out of my running ignition.
And I want my key back, please, now. Unless you have a warrant to take away my car keys, give me back my car keys or show me the warrant.
Car key?
Yes, I'm gonna park my car. I'm parking my car. I'm gonna put my suits on, and I will drive.
そしたらですね、もう今から私のもので連れて行きますから。
We will bring you to the court. So please comply with the court order.
And if I don't, what is the crime? You have to tell me the crime.
This is not a criminal procedure.
So then, if it's not a criminal procedure, why is there 20 people forcing me?
するつもりです。そしてこうなんていうかな、アメリカの法律でこうやはり領事館に警察の人が関わる場合は領事館に連絡。
After I got out of the car and I said, give me back my other keys. I said, if you want to keep the car key, take the car key, but I want my other keys. I told them that I was very angry that they took my car key because there was no warrant for removing that type of stuff from me. And I said, if you're gonna arrest me, I want two things. I want a lawyer right now, and I want you guys to notify the American consulate that I'm being arrested. They said, oh, this is not arrest. This is not arrest. I said, if you put me in handcuffs, that's arrest. You're arresting me for something and treating me like a criminal when you've never told me what the charge is. And by the Japanese Constitution, they have to tell you, and they didn't.
Why do I need to get handcuffed? Why are you gonna handcuff me? What law did I break? You cannot handcuff me until you tell me the law. Please state, no, it is against the law. I will do it, but you have to tell me the law.
They searched me, then they threw me into a vehicle, an unmarked vehicle, and started driving me to the court. They didn't even put my seatbelt on, and I mentioned that to them, like, well, isn't that against the law? You know, like they're just doing, they don't care. Their goal is, the judge said he wants to see me, and they're making sure I get to court. Once I arrived to court, they threw me in a cell.
They didn't bring you to the court, they just threw you to the cell before?
So they brought me to the court, but they put me in a court cell.
Oh, okay.
And then they tried to confiscate my phone and my wallet, and I told them no. They said, put it in the bag now, and I said no. I said, unless you have a police officer come into this room right now and tell me what crime I've committed to make this seizure legal, I'm not giving up my cell phone or my wallet. And I said, and if you don't like that, go talk to the judge, because that's my right under the Japanese Constitution. They kept trying to intimidate me to give up my wallet and cell phone, but I never did. So I ended up got to keep it, and I made like a quick video of me in the cell just to show what it looked like and what I was going through at that time.
Hi, my name is Kevin Kirstel. I have been illegally detained without any acknowledgement of the law. I am now being put and restrained into this room. This is evidence. They have not told me of any crime that I have committed. They are trying to seize my stuff. I refuse until I've been told what crime I have committed. If it is being criminal charged, I have asked for them to provide me with legal counsel, and I'm also having severe stress attack right now, which is medically documented, and I've asked to see a doctor, which they have not given me. So they are invading my human rights. My heart rate is out of control right now. I had over 20-something people at my house arrest me. They said it wasn't a criminal offense, that it was civil, and then when I get to the court, they say it's a criminal. So if it's criminal, I deserve to have a lawyer. It's my right, and they have to tell me the charges before they can seize any of my stuff. Welcome to Japan.
After all of that, did they lead you to the judge?
Yep. So when the judge was ready, at the time that was scheduled, the 1:30 time, they walked me into a courtroom. There was tons of people there, but no one that I recognized besides my wife's two lawyers. There was no family of hers. My wife wasn't there. My kids weren't there. It was just basically a bunch of court staff and some police and just the three judges and the clerk that's going to type it in the translator. And before it started, I said, I want a lawyer and I want medical attention because my heart is racing too fast and I feel like my blood pressure is too high. He said, no, you have to answer my questions. We want to know who you are and we want to know where you live. And so they asked me all these questions to confirm my identity, and they forced me to do it or they wouldn't get me a lawyer. So then he says, you have the right to have a lawyer. Do you want a lawyer? I said, absolutely yes. He's like, do you want us to call through the Hoteris or do you have a number? I said, I have a number you can call. They called it once, and then after that, they just continued the trial without any lawyer. And I said, I want a lawyer, and they just kept ignoring me and continuing the trial.
That's another illegal thing according to the Constitution.
Yes, it absolutely is. There are so many things that they've done against the Constitution, but that's the problem in Japan. So even though the Constitution is supreme above all laws, culturally, most people don't know about the Constitution, and they only do as they're told. So that's basically the culture in Japan, is you just do what you're told, don't question things.
But you have a judge there that's supposed to know the Constitution because, he's a judge.
Absolutely, and he also takes the oath for it. But even these judges that are in the lower courts, they don't go by the constitutional laws, and they go by civil laws because it's civil court. And if there's a misinterpretation in the civil code or in the constitutional laws, then you have to appeal it. So they don't care. It's just like they're still going to do what they want to do.
So what happened after that?
So after that, the judge just kept asking me questions, just more lies that my wife had said, and I had all the evidence to prove otherwise, even messages on my phone. Since I had my phone in court, I was even able to show direct messages to correlate certain dates, certain things that my wife said that wasn't true, just to prove otherwise. He kept saying, we'll take this in consideration. We'll take it into consideration. I showed the psychological reports of my children. I showed the video of my wife attacking me that they've already seen. After the hearing was finished, they said we'll have the hearing results at 3:15, which is basically less than 30 minutes after the trial.
Wow, that's fast.
It was already pre-decided, so even the typing, there's no way they can type that much documents in 30 minutes. Like everything was preordained. And I asked where my children. They said my children were removed from school and they were placed into child welfare, and that they'll be released once they make the announcement to whoever wins. And they announced that my wife was to have the children released to her, but my wife wasn't there, so all this was done behind scenes. So I never got to say goodbye to my children. My children never got to see me come pick them up from school. So they traumatized everyone. They traumatized myself, and they traumatized my children. And it's been already almost 5 days, and I still have not heard from my children. So in my children's mind, I'm probably just dead to them, because dad never came to come pick him up from school, and they were dragged away by police and child services and then transported to their mom, which obviously had to transport them back to Hokkaido. So it must have been a very, very traumatic experience for my children. And it just makes me so upset, because they always say it's always about the best interest for the children. But in my situation, I had my children in school. They're well fed, well taken care of. I had their medical all done check. They're perfectly fine in my care. So for the Japanese court system and the police and everyone to interrupt my children's life just because my wife wanted it and she believes she had the right to it, is not really in the best interest of the children. They did not care whatsoever about the welfare of the children. This was all just to get Japanese children into the hands of a Japanese mother.
So what now?
Yesterday I went and I made the appeal because I only had 3 days to make the appeal for this case. So now officially I have 3 Supreme Court appeals, 2 for the original judgments from the lower court, from the family and high court, and now I have this new judgment for the habeas corpus appealed. So basically we're in legal limbo right now. I'm not divorced, so I still technically have parental authority, but because my wife has physical custody now and she doesn't want to speak with me, we're kind of like in legal limbo where I still have the right to see my children, but she refuses, and the police can't make her do it because it's a civil matter. So the only way I can do it would be to go to the family court and start my own petition saying I want visitation. And by the time that goes through, I'm almost certain my wife's gonna probably try a divorce, since now she has the custody. So the Japanese women, they know how to play the game. They know the system because it's made for them. I'm not saying this happens to everyone. These are just the very extreme cases. In my case, in a very extreme rare case, when a woman just goes totally crazy. She has the power and protection to act this way and do as she wants with the children because they allow her to be able to do this. Because they don't care about the foreign rights or the parents or the father's rights in these matters, that it's just between the children and the mother. So therefore, stay out of it. I've gone to the police several times after this court's finished to let them know that I just want contact with my children since I still have my parental rights. They just said contact the courts. We can't step into this. It's a civil matter. But I said, but you guys arrested me and it was a civil matter. So I said, you'll do it for the mother, but you won't do it for the father, especially if the father's foreign. So right now I've lost my children, I've lost my wife, and there's nothing I can do about it. It drives me absolutely insane. I mean, you couldn't even imagine.
I cannot. Honestly, I cannot.
Yeah, so like my message to everyone is like Japan is like I believe it's a great country, but like every country, they do have their dark side and their flaws. And I would say the biggest issue in Japan right now is, especially in rare circumstances, if the mother and father are not on good terms, the custody situation, since there isn't 50-50 custody after divorce. And the custody laws are very extreme here in regards to the children only going with the mother, and once they're divorced, they just lose all contact with the father if the mother chooses so, which I think is not right, not only just not right for the father, but not fair for the children, especially if they're very connected to the father, because that's taking away the child's rights. That's taking away their constitutional rights, their freedoms, and that's a forceful freedom. So it's almost it's a contradiction in their own law. It doesn't make any sense. And it's like, I can accept my wife doesn't want to be with me no more. Like, that's fine. I can accept that as a man. But what I can't accept is having my children taken away from me forcefully and never being allowed to communicate with them when I have the legal right to do so, just because she's protected by these laws. And if you go on the internet right now, if you type in domestic claims or abuse or anything, it's all protected around just mothers and children. There's nothing about fathers at all, or men. As men, we're kind of just stuck as we're mostly the ones that are doing the abuse, the aggression. So therefore, we don't deserve any counseling or any groups to help us, especially when we're the ones that are actually the victims. I've lived in here for 8 years. I've never broken the law, man. I've been a decent father to my children. That's all I care about. That's my life. It's just a family man. Even in America, I don't have any criminal record, because if you have any criminal record, it does follow you to Japan, and then you won't be allowed to get a visa. So my entire background is clean. So it doesn't make any sense that I would be a 35-year-old man in multiple relationships, and then all of a sudden the one that I have 2 kids with, I go crazy and do bad things to her according to her. That doesn't make any sense, especially for my character. And it doesn't matter how much I prove about her false claims. When it comes down to it, is none of those claims have ever been like actually admitted in court, because if they would, I would have been arrested. I've never been charged with any crime, even for kidnapping. The only thing they just give to her is that she should be the one with the custody for the children. And that's what basically all the judgments come down to. It has nothing to do with anything else except for she gets the children because she's Japanese.
The last I heard from Kevin, he actually lost his Supreme Court appeal, which means that it's gonna be very problematic for him to see his children. This whole situation is indeed quite messed up. The only thing that I can do right now is ask from you guys to please share this video, because it might help Kevin, or in general just spread the word about those issues that indeed happen in Japan. Stay safe, much love.